Okay, welcome back to the Gyrocopters Flash 3. As you know from a previous video, I had intermittent glitches with the scooter where the power just cuts off and I can't reset it unless I disconnect the battery. And not wanting to remove the whole bottom panel, I decided that I would get some switches to flip the battery on and off. Now these are one pole, one throw, and essentially they're there for you know, I can use it on one of the lines on the battery, but I decided to get two and mount them next to each other just because I wanted to disconnect both the negative and positive terminals at the same time or together, or at least have the opportunity to do that. They do have 2-pole 1-throw switches, but nothing rated above 15 amp at the store I went to. And oh great, this says 15 amp. So they basically lied to me. That one says 20 amp. And this one says, oh no, it is 20 amp. So what the heck is this? Oh, at 250. Okay, so that's fine. Again, I'm going to basically mount these up. There's not much room inside of this thing. I think I'm gonna mount it right here on the side. So I have to drill 2 holes, try to fit them in here somewhere. If you look at the wiring here, just to recap, this is the battery. I'll just take this out. That's the battery. This is to the controller. There's a couple of unused wires here. One of them actually goes up to battery voltage when I turn the light on and off, so maybe it's for some auxiliary light. I don't know what this one does. The one tucked back here basically is the brake light going all the way back. And then the rest here are basically just, this is going to the battery to charge it. You've got 3 going to the motor right here. Blue, yellow, green, that's the motor. And this is for the hall sensors, this bundle right there. And this bundle here with 5 wires goes to the display panel up at the top of the scooter. So that's basically all you have. So I'm gonna try to figure out where I can mount these switches, and hopefully they're gonna be popping out right here somewhere, and one over the other. And I'll just have to find a way to insulate all of these terminals and basically get that able to fit without interfering with the battery or shorting out on anything. So let's see what happens. We're gonna start working on it and I'll show you the results in a minute. All right folks, it took a while, but I finally managed to drill the 2 holes. I don't have drill bits this large, and so I had to get out the Dremel and go around and around and around. But in any case, you can see switches have no problem fitting in now. There, and there's one here. Okay, so I can get both in there like this and like this. Okay, I can mount them. They have screws, lots of clearance. Okay, and in the battery, if I get that in here, should fit no problem. Okay, so lots of room, but I'm gonna have to figure out how to insulate all these wires once I hook it up. I'll show you what it looks like when it's finally done, but that's essentially where the kill switches are gonna be. Hopefully out of the way. I'm not gonna trip them with my foot, and they're hard to flick, so they should hopefully stay in position while I'm riding this thing. Okay, so this is a switch that I rigged up. You can see the connector there for the battery passing through these 2 switches. It's basically just cutting off both black and red connectors. And like I said, I could have used one switch that had 2 pole, one toggle, but this one fit better in the scooter, and it was easier to rig up. Tried to insulate it the best I can. I'll insulate some more in there because, you know, with vibrations, who knows what's going to happen here. Last thing I want is the battery to short out somehow. But I'm going to go ahead and install this, and I'll show you what it looks like in the scooter. All right, folks, so here is the switch, or 2 switches actually, wired in. You can see the battery leads here. I'm going to plug the battery into one end. The other end will go to the controller. I've got the switches here. off, on, and that's it. And that's the charge port. So let's get this all rigged up and see how it works. All right, so here it is wired in. It's a bit of a tight squeeze with these connectors. Lots of room around the switches. You can see it's fairly well insulated there. I don't think anything's gonna come loose and contact anything, and these are all tied up as well. This should all fit in. You can see the switches here. When I put them in, it rotated this stuff. I can't get it back without loosening the bolts. I can criticize this in numerous ways. For example, I don't think these switches were good. I just got something that was convenient at a high enough amp rating. Honestly, I think it's overkill. These switches are probably not necessary at all, and they created a lot of problems. For example, having to drill 2 holes, having to make a really big hole here, having to have clearance in this area. These were originally screw mounted connectors. There's like a little screw and you wrap the wire around. That's completely wrong for this application. Those little screw things did not hold these thick wires. So really I should have either had crimps or some kind of sliders that go on. I ended up soldering them on, and that was a huge issue too, because the solder wouldn't stick to these either. I had to file them down to get them all scratched up so that the solder would stick. So all in all, it took a lot longer and a lot more complicated than it needed to be. At least I learned how not to do things as usually we do when we're working on stuff. You know, sometimes it's from the not so smooth sailing that we learn. But in any case, at this point, this could all be for nothing anyway, because it could still be an issue with the controller or the battery. The whole point of this was so that I could reset the scooter while I'm on the go if something weird happens, like happened to me earlier when the thing froze and didn't turn on. I figured at least I could flick this on and off and be able to get going again. And that's basically it, till I figure out what the real cause of the issue is and what's causing it to completely fail, which probably is something in the battery talking to the controller and telling it to turn off because of some issue with the voltage, and maybe the battery's going. Anyway, I'll take it out for a ride and we'll see how it goes. Okay, let's get inside. Let's go. All right, so I took it for a test spin. Something bizarre is happening. I'm able to run around and essentially it's going, pretty fast pace. But when I go over certain bumps, it slows down. And at some point, it just shows up as an E5 error and shuts off. And I can't turn it on again. So I tried resetting it. So basically, this is over. And then I put it back like this. And I tried to turn it on by pressing the button. And nothing happens. Right? Which is theoretically supposed to just disconnect the battery from the entire controller on both positive and negative leads and then flick it back on. Yet when I disconnect the battery and the controller from my switches, plug them together directly, it resets. So I'm not sure if these switches are really taking all the current off or what's going on, but it's bizarre. This should theoretically just be as if I unplug this and plug it back in, but it's not working. This is supposed to be completely disconnecting the battery, and this is supposed to be completely connecting it again. I hold down the button, nothing happens. But now, watch, I unplug this, and I unplug this, the battery. Sorry, I can't do this with one hand, but there. And now I plug them together directly this way. Okay, here we go. Now they're plugged in directly. Watch. Yeah. Well, it worked last time. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Last time all I did was do this and it turned back on, unless there's some kind of it was just fluke and there's a thermal fuse in here and overheated, and it basically just turned off the thing, and it was just a coincidence that I waited long enough and it reset. I mean, that could be the only other reason. It could be inside the battery. There's a thermal fuse that's inactivating it. I'm gonna have to check out what that E5 error is. Okay, so just after I turned the camera off, I just unplugged and plugged it back in, and the scooter turned on again. Now I've got it back into the switches and it's working fine. You can see the wheel turning here. And I don't know, was it just a matter of waiting a few seconds? I mean, the battery's getting hot, but then again, it's in the sun here. I'll try to cover it up, see if that helps. But yeah, it makes no sense. I'm gonna try to apply some resistance to the wheel somehow, because that may also be triggering it. Maybe the Hall effect sensors are getting some glitchy signals back and the controller's shutting it down that way. So we'll see what happens. All right, very strange. It did it to me again. It just stopped responding. I flipped the switches 1,000 times, didn't work. All I did this time was I disconnected the battery from my switch here and plugged it back in. Just one terminal, which theoretically is the same as doing this. It should be exactly the same function. It takes away the voltage, breaks it, and then activates it. And yet, the minute I plugged it back in, I was able to turn the scooter back on. See? It makes no sense. That shouldn't be happening. I mean, it makes no sense why my switches don't do exactly the same thing as me just flipping this in and out. I don't get it. All right, so I've done some more testing with this thing, and I think the battery's toast. That's got to be the issue, because I got home after the thing died on me again with that E5 error, which I believe is the low voltage error, although documentation for this scooter is next to nothing. I can only imagine they're probably using similar controller and setup as a Xiaomi scooter. I guess that's how you pronounce it. The M365 or whatever it is, or the M Pro, whatever, because it's a very similar thing. And when I search for codes, it comes up with the same sort of codes as those scooters. But Gyrocopters doesn't give any information either. You know, there's absolutely no technical spec manual, nothing on it. But in any case, I had this charging. As you can see, the light is green. It's plugged in. Everything's going into the battery. No, it would help if this was connected. Let's get this guy going here. Okay, there. This should now turn red, which it did. Okay. When I got home, I tested the voltage on this thing. Let me cover it up because it's getting really hot. And it was measuring about 5-6 volts. Yet the actual display showed that it was like 3 or 4 bars, even at 5-6 volts, which makes no sense. Something just cut off. A moment ago, I unplugged it, and after charging for a bit, and I measured the voltage, and it was coming up like millivolts, like it wasn't even registering anything. And then a minute later, while still checking with the voltmeter, I ended up going up to 38. So I'm not sure what's going on inside the battery, but there's something inside that's cutting it out, some protection circuit. And when it sees a fault, it lets no voltage off of the connector here. And it's doing that sporadically. So I don't know why, and I don't think me resetting it is doing much. It's just been a random fluke every time, and I'm getting it back to life. I mean, even now, I unplug it, you know, after it's been sitting for a while, I'm able to turn it on. See? And it turns off. But it's just random. And when it shuts off, I'm assuming it's just because the battery's toast, but it's not indicating it on my on the display. It's still showing 3-4 bars of voltage. So it might be having the voltage, but there's just it can't put out current. So I'm sure the battery's weak at this point, and it's able to have a high voltage without load, but the minute there's any load on the battery, it just drops. And therefore it cuts out on the voltage, and then it's no longer powering the scooter. And yeah, it probably, once I ride it a bit, it just cuts off completely, and it's just even unable to turn on because the voltage just drops completely. Okay, so you can see the scooter here, and there are the switches mounted in probably the worst possible position that could be on this scooter. And not only is this not waterproof anymore, the whole thing, you know, this, who knows, if you hit it, it can easily hit something. I don't know. Not the best position, but anyway. Hello, doggy. But in any case, not the best position to be in, but obviously works easily. If anything, when you're riding, if something goes this way, at least I mounted the switches with these back so it stays on. If it was on this way and you hit something, or your foot brushes against something, it would turn your scooter off, potentially. So at least that's one good thing. But yeah, forget about the waterproofing. This is completely not a water-resistant scooter anymore. And hopefully nothing will short out in there and vibrate loose. Because you saw my wiring. I mean, it's being held there. Hopefully vibrations won't completely dislodge and break anything and cause a problem. But time will tell. We'll see what's going on. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed this video. Catch you next time. And there's Doggy checking out the scooter. Do you approve? Yeah. Not really. Okay. Catch you next time. Bye for now.